The final whistle has blown. The scoreboard reads 84-70. Team USA walks away from Spain with another victory, completing an undefeated run through the qualifying rounds. And just like that, basketball goes dark. The games are over, the qualifying rounds are finished, and we are left standing in the aftermath, trying to make sense of what we just witnessed over the past 4 to 5 days. But let me tell you something right now. The conversation coming out of this tournament is not going to be about the wins. It is not going to be about the dominant performances or the undefeated record. No, what is going to dominate every sports talk show, every podcast, every comment section from here to September is something far more complicated, far more frustrating, and far more important to the future of this sport. We need to talk about Caitlin Clark. Let me paint the picture for you because the context matters. Since July of 2025, we have not seen Caitlin Clark step onto a professional basketball court. The injury kept her sidelined. The rehab kept her out of the spotlight. The fans were starving. The analysts were speculating. And then...
The show as soon as possible, but I guess we gotta leave.
And Puerto Rico's been a great host.
Pick and roll. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese.
Great ball movement there. And
Gustafson doing the right thing. She knows it's going to be tough to get to the basket with too many bumps.
Finally, mercifully, Team USA gave us what we had been craving for months on end. For 4 to 5 glorious days, we got to watch her play again. We got to see her handle the rock. We got to watch her thread passes through impossible windows. We got to witness her pull up from the logo like it was nothing, like the three-point line was just a suggestion rather than a boundary. The itch was scratched. The hunger was fed. But here is where the story takes a turn. Here is where the questions start piling up like unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. Caitlin Clark did not start this game. Again. Let that marinate for a moment. The most marketable player in women's basketball history. The person who single-handedly dragged this sport into the mainstream consciousness. The woman whose jersey sales probably fund a significant portion of the league's entire marketing operation. She watched the opening tip from the bench. She came into the game as a reserve, and for the life of me, sitting here right now, I cannot wrap my head around the logic. Now, I am not naive. I understand that reports started surfacing yesterday suggesting that Clark might have been under the weather. Maybe she was dealing with something physically. Maybe the coaching staff wanted to protect her. Fine, I can accept that as a theoretical possibility. But if that explanation holds water, then someone needs to explain to me why she played 22 minutes in this game. Someone needs to clarify why she got more court time than several of the players who actually started. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot tell me she was too compromised to start, but healthy enough to be one of the most utilized players on the roster against the toughest opponent Team USA faced in this entire tournament. The math does not add up. The logic collapses under the slightest scrutiny. Something else is going on here, and we need to address it. Let us examine the numbers, because the numbers tell a story that words sometimes cannot capture. Caitlin Clark finished this game with 7 points. She shot 2 for 7 from the field. She went 1 of 5 from beyond the arc. Not her finest shooting performance. Not even in the same neighborhood as her best work. The three-point shooting in particular, 1 of 5, that stings. That is going to stand out in the box score for anyone looking for ammunition. But here is what the casual observers, the box score watchers, the people who form opinions based solely on points scored are going to miss entirely. She had 7 assists. 7 assists in 22 minutes of playing time. That is elite-level playmaking by any standard you want to apply. That is someone who fundamentally understands how to elevate her teammates, how to create opportunities out of nothing, how to orchestrate an offense even when her individual shot is refusing to cooperate. The shooting will come back, the rhythm will return, but the vision, the basketball intelligence, the ability to make everyone around her better, that was on full display regardless of the final stat line. And yet, despite all of this, the coaching staff insisted on deploying her alongside Chelsea Gray. I need someone to explain this to me like I am a child. because I genuinely do not understand the thought process. You have two players who both require the ball in their hands to maximize their effectiveness. You have two guards who operate best when they are controlling the tempo and initiating the offense. And your solution is to put them on the floor at the same time and force them to figure it out? Alternate them. Stagger their minutes. Create rotations where Clark runs the show during her stretches and Gray runs it during hers. This is not advanced basketball theory. This is fundamental roster management that any competent high school coach would implement without a second thought. But apparently, that memo got lost somewhere between the locker room and the coaching staff's clipboard. The fans see it. The people in the comments see it. Everyone watching these games is asking the same question. Why do they keep doing this? And the silence from the coaching staff is deafening. Throughout the entire tournament, across all the qualifying round games, Caitlin Clark averaged 12 points, 6.3 assists, and 1.5 rebounds per game. Those assist numbers are phenomenal. They tell you everything you need to know about her court vision and her willingness to make the correct basketball play, regardless of who gets the glory. But those scoring numbers? Those could have been dramatically higher if the system had simply allowed her to operate, if they had put the ball in her hands consistently, if they had let her orchestrate the offense the way she does for Indiana, if they had built the system around her strengths rather than asking her to fit into a structure that diminishes her impact, we would be having an entirely different conversation right now. Instead, they took her off the ball. They relegated her to a secondary role. They asked the most dynamic offensive player in the sport to stand in corners and wait for opportunities rather than creating them herself. And what we got was a muted, constrained version of the player who set this entire sport ablaze. But here is what I want to emphasize, because credit needs to be given where credit is due. Even in a diminished role, even coming off the bench, even sharing backcourt responsibilities with another ball-dominant guard, Caitlin Clark still looked better than she did before the injury. Her handle was tighter, her movements were crisper, her court vision, impossibly, seemed even sharper than before. And most importantly, this is the part that really jumped off the screen. Her defensive effort showed dramatic improvement. We witnessed a clear defensive shift from her in this game. She was fighting through screens with purpose. She was staying in front of her assignments with discipline. She was making Spain work for every single look when she was the primary defender. This is the type of defense that silences the critics who have questioned her on that end of the floor for years. This is the type of effort that demonstrates growth, maturity, and commitment to becoming a complete player. She delivered that performance even when her offensive numbers were not where she wanted them to be. That tells you everything about her character and her competitive drive. So yes, it was not always aesthetically pleasing. Yes, there were stretches where you found yourself screaming at the screen, demanding that someone give her the ball. Yes, the 1 of 5 from 3 is going to be circled in red by everyone who wants to diminish what she accomplished. But stepping back and looking at the complete picture, I am genuinely pleased with what I witnessed. Caitlin Clark is back. She is healthy, and she is better than she was before the injury derailed her momentum. The foundation is rock solid. The skills are sharper than ever. The basketball genius that made her a household name is absolutely still present. Now we need to address the elephant that has been standing in the corner of the room throughout this entire tournament. The starting lineup for this final game included Chelsea Gray, Kalia Copper, Jackie Young, Dewana Bonner, and other veteran players who have undoubtedly earned their positions through years of dedicated service. I understand the logic of deploying experienced players in high-stakes situations. I understand that coaching staffs develop trust with players who have proven themselves over extended periods. But at what point do we ask the fundamental question, what is the actual purpose of these games? Is the sole objective winning? Because Team USA is going to win regardless of who starts. They are the best team on the planet by a substantial margin. Spain represented their toughest test throughout the entire qualifying process, and the final margin was still 14 points. There is no realistic danger of losing to any opponent in women's international basketball. So if the outcome is essentially predetermined, if victory is assumed before the ball is even tipped, why not utilize these games to develop chemistry with the players who represent the future of the program? Why not discover what Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers look like running the offense together with extended minutes? Why not experiment and explore and build towards something sustainable? The fans are desperate to see that combination. The media is clamoring for it. And based on everything we know about both players, they want to experience it themselves. We received glimpses during this tournament. We watched Caitlin Clark throwing dimes to Paige Bueckers in transition. We witnessed them sharing the floor and creating beautiful basketball together. But it was never enough. It always felt like the coaching staff was more concerned with ensuring everyone received their participation minutes rather than optimizing the talent at their disposal. That is not how you construct a dynasty. That is how you organize a summer camp where everyone goes home with the participation trophy and nobody actually improves. And speaking of developments that caught everyone off guard, we need to discuss the moment that is going to generate the most headlines, the most reaction videos, the most heated debate across every platform. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese showing genuine affection toward each other. I know, I had to watch it multiple times to confirm what I was seeing. These two have been positioned as rivals since their college days. The media has manufactured, amplified, and commodified their supposed animosity to the point where the average fan assumes genuine hatred exists between them. And perhaps there has been real tension at various points. Perhaps the competition brought out edges that created friction. But what we witnessed in this game was something entirely different. We saw Clark and Reese connecting on plays and celebrating together. We saw them acknowledging each other's contributions with authentic enthusiasm. We witnessed genuine camaraderie between two players who the media industrial complex has desperately tried to transform into bitter enemies. And honestly, it was beautiful to watch. This is likely going to emerge as one of the dominant storylines from this tournament. Not the undefeated record, because that was universally expected. Not the defensive improvement from Clark, because that requires nuanced analysis that casual observers rarely engage in. The headline grabbing all the attention is going to focus on these two burying whatever hatchet the public assumed existed. Whether this reconciliation was entirely organic or whether both players recognized the headlines from recent days and consciously decided to eliminate that narrative, the motivation is ultimately irrelevant. What matters is that it happened publicly. What matters is that two of the most prominent names in women's basketball conducted themselves like teammates rather than adversaries. And that development is unambiguously positive for the sport. Now let us confront the uncomfortable reality waiting on the horizon. Team USA has successfully qualified for the FIFA World Basketball Tournament scheduled for September. That represents the next major milestone on the competitive calendar. But between this moment and that tournament, an enormous cloud of uncertainty hangs over everything. The WNBA still does not have a CBA deal. The league and the Players Association remain at an impasse. There is no agreement in place. There is no transparent path forward. And until that situation gets resolved through negotiation, there is genuine uncertainty about when professional basketball will return to the court for regular competition. This is the reality confronting Caitlin Clark and every other player in the league. They just delivered 4 to 5 days of captivating basketball. They just reminded the sporting world why this game deserves attention and investment. And now they are heading back into a frustrating holding pattern, waiting for executives and lawyers and union representatives to untangle the business complexities. For the fans who tuned in specifically to watch Clark perform, who spent months waiting patiently for her return to action, who finally received their fix, this situation is genuinely frustrating. We have no concrete information about when we will see her compete again. We have no reliable timeline to anchor our expectations. We are essentially starting from scratch, consuming highlights and box scores and holding our breath, hoping that someone figures out how to move the league forward. The MVP voting for this tournament is still being processed, and while I would personally love to see Caitlin Clark take home that recognition, intellectual honesty requires acknowledging that Paige Bueckers has been remarkable throughout these games. 9 points in the final contest, but her overall body of work across the tournament has been undeniable. She has been performing at an exceptional level. Anyone claiming otherwise simply was not paying attention. So we find ourselves in familiar territory. We wait. We speculate endlessly. We analyze every comment from every interview, searching for hidden meaning. We attempt to interpret coaching decisions and lineup choices like ancient texts requiring scholarly decoding. Because what Team USA has in Caitlin Clark is a generational talent who has finally returned to full health. What they have is someone who can fill arenas, drive television ratings, and generate revenue streams that benefit everyone associated with the sport. What they have is the future of women's basketball, currently being asked to come off the bench while veterans receive preferential treatment. I want to be absolutely clear about something. I am not suggesting the veterans are undeserving of respect. Chelsea Gray, Kalia Copper, Jackie Young, these are outstanding basketball players who have contributed enormously to the sport. But leadership requires balancing acknowledgement of past contributions with investment in future potential. It requires recognizing when evolution serves everyone better than rigid adherence to tradition. Team USA went undefeated. That is the official result that will appear in the record books. But the conversation extends far beyond the final scores. It encompasses why Caitlin Clark continues watching opening tips from the sideline. It includes why she keeps getting paired with Chelsea Gray despite obvious fit issues. It raises questions about whether the coaching staff possesses a coherent vision or whether they are simply improvising from game to game. Until those questions receive satisfactory answers, until we witness a clear strategic plan for maximizing the most valuable asset in the sport, the frustration will persist. The fans will continue demanding explanations. The analysts will keep pressing for accountability. Because Caitlin Clark deserves a situation that maximizes her abilities. The game deserves to showcase its brightest star without artificial constraints. And we are going to keep demanding answers until someone demonstrates the courage to provide them. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Should Clark have started every game? Is the coaching staff fundamentally mismanaging her talent? And what does the future hold for the WNBA if the CBA situation remains unresolved? Make sure you subscribe because this story is far from reaching its conclusion. We will continue covering every development, every game, and every decision that shapes where this league goes from here. Until next time, keep watching closely and keep your expectations appropriately high.